I never thought I'd hear those words come from my own daughter. Not from the little girl I raised with love. Not from the child whose hands I held when she took her first steps. But that night, she said it. The best gift would be if you just died. Her voice was cold. No hesitation. No guilt. Just anger, raw, sharp, and filled with something I couldn't recognize anymore. I stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen. The clock ticked behind me, the only sound in the room. It was her 21st birthday. I'd spent the whole day preparing her favorite dinner, lasagna, garlic bread, and that chocolate cake she loved as a kid. I wanted to surprise her. I wanted to remind her that even though we hadn't been close lately, I still loved her. But instead of gratitude, I got that sentence. A knife straight to the heart. I remember gripping the edge of the counter, trying not to fall. My chest hurt, not from the words, but from what they meant. That somewhere along the way, I had lost her. She stared at me, her arms crossed, her eyes full of hatred I didn't understand. "I'm serious, Mom," she said. "You ruin everything. You're always there, pretending to care, but all you do is make me miserable." I wanted to speak, but my throat wouldn't work. Every part of me wanted to scream, "What did I do wrong?" Instead, I whispered, "Honey, I just wanted to celebrate with you," she scoffed. "Celebrate? You don't even know me anymore." Then she grabbed her coat, slammed the door, and walked out into the rain. That sound, the slam, it echoed for hours. Later that night, I sat alone on the kitchen floor. The food had gone cold. The candles melted into puddles of wax. I kept replaying her words in my head, trying to make sense of them. Was it anger? Stress? Had I done something I didn't realize? I reached for my phone, typed her number, but I didn't press call. Something in me stopped. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had no right to reach out. The next morning, I woke up to silence. Her room was empty, bed untouched. Her things were gone. No note. No message. Just absence. That's when I realized, she wasn't just angry. She wanted me gone. 3 days passed. No call. No text. Nothing. I kept checking her social media. She was posting pictures, smiling with friends, out at bars, living life like I didn't exist. Every like, every comment, felt like proof that she had erased me completely. That's when the depression hit. It wasn't the sadness that comes and goes. It was heavy, like carrying a stone in my chest all day. I stopped eating. Stopped going to work. I'd sit by the window, watching the street, hoping she'd come back. But she never did. One night, I took out the old photo albums. I flipped through the pictures, her first birthday, her prom, her graduation. Every photo told a story of love, sacrifice, and pride. And yet, here I was, the villain in her story. A week later, my sister, Rachel, called. "Linda," she said softly, "you need to let her be. Kids say things when they're angry." I wanted to believe that. But I knew those words weren't said in anger. They came from somewhere deeper, resentment, maybe even hate. "I just don't understand," I told Rachel. I gave her everything. Rachel sighed. Sometimes giving everything isn't what they need. Sometimes they just want space. Space. That word felt like a punishment. Because space meant distance. And distance meant losing her completely. But after that call, I made a decision. For the first time in years, I chose myself. If my daughter truly wanted me gone, then maybe I needed to let her go. So, I stopped calling. Stopped checking her posts. I deleted our old messages. Every click, every swipe, felt like tearing out pieces of my heart. But I kept going. I told myself if she wants a world without me, I'll give it to her. I started focusing on myself, therapy, walks, painting. I tried to rebuild. But some nights, I'd still wake up at 3 a.m., hearing her voice, "The best gift would be if you just died." And I'd cry quietly, clutching my pillow, so the walls wouldn't hear. Then one morning, 2 months later, I got a letter. No return address. Just my name, in handwriting I instantly recognized. It was her. I hesitated before opening it. My hands shook. The paper smelled faintly of her perfume, lavender. Inside was a short note. Mom, I didn't mean it. But I can't explain everything yet. I just need time. Please don't try to find me. Emily. My heart broke all over again. Not because of what she wrote, but because she still didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. That night, I sat by the window again, holding that letter. The rain started to fall, soft at first, then heavy. And for the first time in months, I whispered aloud, I'll wait for you, Emily. No matter how long it takes. 4 days after that letter arrived, I couldn't stop reading it. It was only 3 sentences, yet every word carried 1,000 questions. Mom, I didn't mean it. But I can't explain everything yet. Please don't try to find me. Those last words, don't try to find me, cut deep. Why? Why would my daughter write that if she wasn't in danger, or hiding something? At night, I'd hold the note under my lamp, tracing each curve of her handwriting. My heart told me she was scared. My mind told me to obey her wish. But a mother's instinct doesn't turn off like a switch. So, I started looking for signs. I drove by her old apartment one afternoon. The blinds were drawn. A for rent sign hung crooked in the window. I asked the landlord, do you know where Emily went? He frowned. Left in a hurry. Didn't say where. Paid the rent in cash for the last month and just disappeared. Disappeared. That word haunted me the entire drive home. Who leaves in a hurry, with cash, without telling their own mother? That night, I sat in my living room, clutching a mug of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Rain tapped against the window again, just like the night she left. It felt like the universe replaying the same moment, daring me to do something different this time. Finally, I whispered, I can't just wait anymore. I went to my computer, typed her name into every social media search bar I could think of. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Nothing. No new posts. No comments. She had vanished from the digital world, too. I even checked local hospital registries, secretly praying and fearing at the same time. Nothing there either. That's when the guilt returned. Maybe she meant what she said that night. Maybe my searching was just another form of control, the very thing she hated. 3 days later, I got an email from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "Stop looking." My heart raced. I opened it. Inside was one line, "You're putting her in danger. Leave her alone." No name. No signature. But attached to the message was a photo. It was Emily standing at a bus station, wearing a grey hoodie, looking over her shoulder. Her eyes were wide, fearful. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't free. The timestamp said it was taken 2 days ago, in another city 3 hours away. I printed the photo, my hands shaking. What was going on? Was she running from someone? The letter said don't find me. The email said leave her alone. And the photo said she wasn't safe. That night I barely slept. Every sound outside made me flinch. I felt watched. The next morning, I went to the police. I showed them the photo and the letter. The officer frowned. Your daughter is an adult. Unless you believe she's in danger, there's not much we can do. I pointed at the photo. Look at her face. She is in danger. He sighed. We'll file a wellness check, but if she's told you not to contact her, we have to respect that. Respect that. How do you respect something that feels so wrong? Weeks passed. No news. No calls. Just the same emptiness. I started hearing her voice in my dreams, sometimes crying, sometimes calling for me. Every morning, I'd wake up drenched in sweat, whispering her name. My therapist told me, Linda, you have to trust that she'll reach out when she's ready. But ready for what? A funeral? A confession? A goodbye? I couldn't sit still. So, I began visiting the city from the photo every weekend. Just walking bus stations, cafes, bookstores. Looking for her face in every crowd. People probably thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. But when you're a mother, hope is the only drug that keeps you alive. One afternoon, while sitting at a small diner, I overheard 2 waitresses talking. She looked so young, maybe 21, one said. Yeah, the girl with the bruises on her arm? Poor thing. She came in last week, kept checking the door like someone was following her. My heart skipped a beat. Excuse me, I said, leaning toward them. Do you remember what she looked like? The waitress squinted. Brown hair, grey hoodie, quiet voice. Paid cash. It had to be her. Did she say where she was staying? I asked, trying to steady my shaking voice. The waitress thought for a moment. Something about a shelter on Pine Street. Pine Street. I was already halfway to my car before she finished talking. When I got there, the building looked tired and forgotten, paint peeling, windows cracked, a faded sign that read Women's Safe Haven. I walked in and told the woman at the desk, I'm looking for my daughter, Emily Waters. She might be staying here. The woman looked cautious. We can't release information about residents for safety reasons. I felt my chest tighten. Please. I just need to know she's okay. The woman studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. She was here, she whispered. But she left last week. With a man. A man. My blood ran cold. What man? She shook her head. We didn't get a name. He said he was family. She seemed nervous, but she went with him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. But instead, I walked out and sat on the curb, rain dripping down my face like the sky was crying with me. That's when I decided, no more waiting. No more trusting letters or police reports. I would find her myself. Even if it meant risking everything. That night, I went home and printed missing person flyers. Her photo, her description, my number. I pinned one on every telephone pole, every cafe wall, every corner of that city. Days passed with no calls. Until one evening, my phone finally buzzed. Is this Emily's mother? A man's voice asked. My heart raced. Yes, it is. Do you know where she is? A pause. Then, meet me tomorrow. 8 p.m. Under the old bridge by Riverside. Before I could ask anything else, he hung up. I stared at my phone. The number was blocked. Was this real? Or a trap? That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't breathe. Every instinct screamed danger. But love doesn't listen to logic. So, I went. The bridge was dark, silent except for the river below. I waited, and waited. Then, footsteps. A tall figure approached. Hood up. Hands in pockets. Are you Linda? He asked. Yes, I whispered. Where's my daughter? He looked around, then handed me a folded piece of paper. Read this when you get home. And stop asking questions. Before I could respond, he turned and disappeared into the fog. I wanted to chase him, but fear froze me in place. My heart pounded as I unfolded the paper under the streetlight. Inside were 2 words, written in Emily's handwriting, trust no one. I barely remember driving home that night. The paper trembled in my hand the entire way, those 2 words burning into my mind, trust no one. It wasn't just fear I felt. It was confusion, pain, and the awful, crawling realization that my daughter might be caught in something darker than I ever imagined. I sat on my couch until sunrise, staring at the note under the lamp. I read it over and over, hoping it would somehow change. But it didn't. Trust no one. Did she mean me? The man under the bridge? Someone else entirely? Every possibility twisted my stomach tighter. The next morning, I took the note to the police again. Same officer. Same dismissive tone. We told you before. Unless there's evidence of a crime, this is evidence. I interrupted, slapping the note onto his desk. She's in danger. She wouldn't write something like this unless someone was controlling her. He sighed. Could it be a prank? A prank? My eyes filled with tears. My daughter's been missing for months. Does that sound like a prank to you? He looked away. We'll keep it on file. That was it. Another dead end. I drove home angry. Angry at the police. Angry at myself. Angry at the world for letting this happen. But mostly, I was angry at whoever had taken her. Because by now, I knew someone had her. And she was scared to tell me who. That night, I searched the city again. Every alley, every park bench, every cafe that might still be open. I asked strangers. Showed her picture. Most people just shook their heads. Until one man said something that froze me. Yeah, he said, pointing toward the east side. I think I saw her near the old factory. There's a group that hangs out there sometimes. Kinda sketchy. The old factory. A place people avoided after dark. I went there the next morning. The air smelled like rust and mold. Broken windows. Crumbling walls. It looked like something out of a nightmare. But on the back wall, something caught my eye. A faded graffiti symbol. A circle with a jagged line through it. Underneath, someone had written in chalk, "The gift." My heart stopped. The best gift would be if you just died. Those were her words. That sentence. That moment. Had it been more than anger? Was it connected to this place? I took out my phone and snapped a picture. Then I noticed something else, scratches on the floor. A chair. Rope fibers. And in the corner, a torn piece of grey fabric. Her hoodie. I sank to my knees, clutching it to my chest. She had been here. When I got home, I uploaded the photo of the graffiti and started researching. After hours of searching, I found something chilling. A symbol used by a group calling themselves the Gifted Path, an underground self-actualization organization that preyed on young people, promising them enlightenment, purpose, and family. But it wasn't a family. It was a cult. And suddenly, everything made sense. Her coldness. Her disappearance. The warning to trust no one. She was in it. And trying to escape. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to call the police again, but I knew what they'd say, it's just speculation. So, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I joined their online forum. Used a fake name. Pretended to be a new recruit. At first, it seemed harmless. They talked about energy, purification, becoming reborn. But after a few days, I started noticing patterns. Users who asked too many questions vanished from the chat. Messages deleted. Accounts removed. And then, one night, someone messaged me privately. "Welcome to the path. We see your light. To meet." The others, come alone. No phones. No attachments. They attached an address. The same city where Emily had been spotted. I stared at that message for a long time. Every rational part of me screamed no. But the mother in me whispered go. So, I went. The meeting was held in a dimly lit warehouse. Candles lined the floor, and soft chanting filled the air. People sat in a circle, eyes closed, hands linked. At the center stood a man in white robes, tall, calm, with a voice that almost sounded hypnotic. He smiled at me. "Welcome, sister. Are you ready to be reborn?" I nodded weakly, my pulse pounding. He motioned for me to sit. I scanned the faces around me, young men, young women, blank expressions. And then, I saw her. Emily. Her hair was shorter. Her face thinner. But it was her. She looked at me, and in that instant, her expression changed from calm to panic. She stood up quickly. "You shouldn't be here." The leader turned to her. "Do you know this woman?" Emily hesitated. No, her voice was trembling. But her eyes told me everything. She was terrified. Before I could speak, two men approached and grabbed my arms. "Wait. She's my daughter," I shouted. The leader's smile faded. "You were told to come alone, without attachment." I struggled, kicking, yelling. "Emily, please, come with me." But she looked away. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "I can't." They dragged me outside, tossed me into the mud, and slammed the door shut behind me. I lay there shaking, soaked, broken, watching the lights flicker from inside that warehouse. I knew then I couldn't save her by walking through the front door. I'd have to be smarter. I'd have to find a way in that they couldn't see coming. That night, as I drove home with my clothes still wet and my hands trembling, I made a vow, I would expose them. And I would get my daughter back. No matter what it took. Because I wasn't just her mother anymore. I was her only chance. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, pale, scared, trapped in that circle of flickering candlelight. My Emily. I knew she wasn't safe. Not with them. Not with him, the man they called the guide. I sat at my kitchen table, dripping wet, mud on my shoes, clutching my phone. Every instinct screamed to call the police again, but what could I tell them? That I snuck into a cult meeting and found my missing daughter? They'd laugh. Or worse, they'd warn the group before I could act. So, instead, I started digging. By morning, I had a plan. I searched online for every news article, forum, and post about the gifted path. The deeper I went, the darker it got. Dozens of missing person reports over the last 5 years, all young adults, mostly women. They joined the group, then disappeared. Families filed complaints, but nothing ever stuck. Every story ended the same way, they left on their own free will. But I knew better. The cult was smart. They erased people, cut off their identities, isolated them, made them believe leaving meant death. And now, they had my daughter. That afternoon, I drove back to the city. I parked near the warehouse but stayed hidden across the street in an old car wash. I watched for hours, notebook in hand. People came and went, always in pairs. Always silent. Always looking over their shoulders. Around sunset, I saw her again. Emily. She walked out with 2 others, carrying a box of supplies. She looked thinner than before. Her skin was pale, her movements robotic. Like she was half alive. I whispered to myself, "Hold on, baby. I'm here." They got into a van with no license plate and drove off. I followed, keeping distance. They stopped at a farmhouse on the edge of town, broken fences, boarded windows, the perfect place for secrets. I parked down the road and watched through binoculars. They unloaded crates of food, candles, notebooks, supplies for something big. Then I noticed the symbol again, painted on the door. A circle, with a line through it. The gift. That night, I called my sister Rachel. "I found her," I said quietly. Rachel gasped. "Oh my God, Linda. Where is she?" "She's in a cult, Ratch. They've brainwashed her." Rachel was silent for a moment. "You can't handle this alone. You need help." "I tried the police. They won't listen." "Then go to the press. Tell your story." But that was the problem. If I went public, they'd move her, maybe hurt her. I couldn't risk that. "No," I said firmly. "Not yet. Linda, promise me you'll be careful." "I promise." It was a lie. The next day, I went back, this time dressed differently. Dark clothes. Hat. Sunglasses. I waited until the van left again. Then I snuck around the side of the farmhouse. The door was padlocked, but one window was cracked open. I climbed through and landed inside what looked like a storage room. It smelled like incense and dust. There were stacks of notebooks, boxes of candles, and photos. Hundreds of them. Faces of young people. Smiling, crying, or blank. Each labeled with a name, a number, and a phrase, "The unworthy shall awaken." My stomach turned. Then I saw her photo. Emily. Her eyes looked empty. Underneath her picture, it said, "The Offering, Stage 3. My knees gave out. The Offering. What were they planning? Footsteps echoed down the hall. I froze. A door creaked open. 2 men entered, talking quietly. I ducked behind a crate, heart pounding so loud I thought they'd hear it. "The guide says the next ceremony is Friday," one whispered. "She's ready." Friday. 2 days away. They left. I waited until the sound of their boots faded, then slipped out the window, running until my lungs burned. By the time I got to my car, tears were streaming down my face. Whatever the offering was, I knew it wasn't good. And I had 2 days to stop it. That night, I printed every photo I'd taken, the building, the symbol, the people, the van. Then I drove to a local reporter's office. A young man named David met me in the lobby. He listened quietly as I told him everything. When I showed him the photos, his eyes widened. "Linda, this is huge. But if what you're saying is true, These people are dangerous. I don't care. They have my daughter. He hesitated. If I publish this without solid proof, they'll come after both of us. I looked him dead in the eye. Then we get the proof. We planned it out. He'd record everything from the outside. I'd sneak back in during the ceremony and find Emily. It sounded insane, because it was. But it was my only choice. Friday came too fast. That night, the sky was heavy with rain. I parked in the same spot, wearing dark clothes, camera hidden in my coat. At exactly 8 o'clock, cars started arriving. People in robes stepped out, chanting softly, carrying candles that glowed like tiny flames in the dark. I slipped inside through the back window again. The room was filled with low music, drums, whispers, and chanting that sent chills down my spine. At the center of the room was a wooden platform. And standing on it was Emily. She wore a white gown. Her eyes were closed. Her hands trembled. The guide stood beside her, holding a silver bowl filled with something dark, blood, maybe. He raised his arms. Tonight, we shed the pain of the old world. Tonight, our offering becomes one with the gift. My heart stopped. No. No, no, no. I stepped forward, shouting, "Stop. Don't touch her." The room went silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. The guide smiled. Slowly. "Well," he said. "The mother returns." Emily's eyes snapped open. "Mom!" 2 men rushed forward and grabbed me. I struggled, screaming, "Emily, run!" But she didn't move. She just stared, frozen, tears in her eyes. "Let her go," I shouted. "She's not your offering." The guide tilted his head. "Oh, but she chose this. She's brainwashed." He smiled. "No. She's free." And then, in one swift motion, he raised the bowl. The silence that followed my daughter's outburst had lasted weeks. The house felt emptier than ever. Even though Emma was gone, her presence lingered like a haunting echo. Every room whispered memories, the laughter from the kitchen, the arguments in the hallway, the birthdays, the tears. I tried to tell myself I did the right thing, cutting her off financially, emotionally, even physically. But every night when I lay in bed, I felt this deep ache that refused to leave. Parents aren't supposed to hate their children, but that day, I came close. One evening, I sat at the dining table, staring at a half-empty glass of wine. Rain pattered softly against the window. I'd been reading an old letter one Emma wrote me when she was 8. The handwriting was messy, filled with spelling mistakes and drawings of us holding hands. At the bottom, she'd written, "Mom, I love you more than all the stars." My chest tightened. How did we get here? The sound of the rain grew heavier, thunder rumbling in the distance. I found myself talking to the empty room. "You said I was dead to you, Emma. But I never stopped loving you, not for a single second." That night, I dreamed of her standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into the ocean. I called her name, but she didn't turn around. She just whispered, "You'll understand soon, Mom." Then she stepped forward and vanished into the dark water. I woke up gasping. My heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't shake the image. The next morning, I received a message. Unknown number. "Mrs. Hall? This is Dr. Watkins from St. Andrew's Medical. I need to speak with you about your daughter." My hands went cold. My throat tightened. I called back immediately. The voice on the other end was calm but serious. "Your daughter was admitted last night. Overdose. She's stable now, but you should come." I didn't even realize I'd dropped the phone. My legs felt weak, like they wouldn't hold me. Within minutes, I grabbed my coat and rushed to the hospital. When I arrived, the sterile smell of disinfectant filled the air. The fluorescent lights flickered slightly, or maybe it was just my vision shaking. Dr. Watkins met me in the hallway. A tall man with tired eyes. "She's lucky, Mrs. Hall," he said. If her roommate hadn't found her when she did, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. My heart broke all over again. He continued, "Physically, she'll recover. But emotionally, she's fragile." She mentioned something about feeling unwanted, unloved, and guilty. "Guilty," I whispered. He nodded. Sometimes, pain doesn't come from hate. It comes from misunderstanding. When I finally saw Emma, she looked so small in that hospital bed. Her skin was pale, her lips dry. There were dark circles under her eyes. I stood by the doorway, afraid to move closer. Afraid she'd tell me to leave. But then her eyes opened, and for the first time in months, they softened when they met mine. "Mom," she whispered. Her voice cracked. I rushed to her side, grabbing her hand. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." Tears blurred my vision. She didn't pull away. That alone was enough to shatter the walls I'd built around my heart. We sat there in silence for what felt like hours. Then, finally, she spoke. "I didn't mean what I said that day," she said quietly. "About you dying." My throat tightened. "I was angry," she continued. "I was hurt. I felt like you didn't believe in me. Like you loved the idea of me more than who I actually was. Emma, I thought if I said something so awful, it would make you feel the pain I felt." She swallowed hard. "But when you cut me off, I realized I'd lost everything that mattered." I brushed a tear from her cheek. "Sweetheart, I was scared. I thought tough love would help you grow up, help you find your way. I didn't realize it would break you." She squeezed my hand weakly. "I thought you hated me." "Hate you?" I whispered. "You're the reason I breathe." The room filled with quiet sobs. Two broken hearts trying to piece themselves together again. A nurse entered softly, checking Emma's vitals. When she left, I asked, "Why did you?" Emma looked away. "I got lost, Mom." Everything felt heavy. The debt, the pressure, the guilt. I just wanted the noise to stop. I stroked her hair gently. "You'll never be alone again, Emma. Not as long as I'm alive." That night, as I sat beside her hospital bed, I made a silent promise not just to her, but to myself. To listen more. To judge less. To forgive, not just her, but me too. Because sometimes, parents make mistakes trying to protect their children. And sometimes, children hurt us trying to find themselves. But in the end, love, even shattered, bruised love, can still heal. As dawn broke, I whispered, "Emma, when you're ready, we'll go home." Her lips curled into a faint smile. "I'd like that." And in that moment, I knew this wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning of a new one. It had been 3 weeks since Emma left the hospital. 3 weeks since I'd watched her step out into the sunlight, weak but breathing, fragile, but alive. She moved back into the house, though it didn't feel the same as before. We spoke in soft tones, careful not to reopen old wounds. The tension had loosened, but the scars between us still pulsed beneath the surface. I tried to make things normal again. I cooked her favorite breakfast, French toast with cinnamon sugar. She smiled when I served it, but I noticed her appetite was gone. She'd take 2 bites, sip her coffee, and stare out the window, lost somewhere I couldn't reach. "Emma," I said gently one morning, "if you ever feel like talking, about anything, I'm here." She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "I know, Mom. I just need time." The days passed slowly. I started therapy sessions for both of us. At first, she resisted, saying she didn't need it. But after one particularly hard night, when I heard her crying in her room, she agreed. Dr. Caldwell, our therapist, was a calm woman in her 50s, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see straight through pain. During one session, she said, "Emma, sometimes we say cruel things to the people we love most. Not because we hate them, but because we're desperate for them to understand our pain." Emma's eyes welled with tears. I just wanted her to listen. Dr. Caldwell nodded. "And she's listening now." "That's the beginning." I reached out, and Emma took my hand. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a spark of connection again. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, the air between us began to soften. We started spending evenings together again, movie nights, cooking dinners, going on walks. Sometimes we'd sit by the lake, where we used to go when she was little. She'd rest her head on my shoulder like she used to. I began to hope, really hope, that we could rebuild what we lost. But just as the sun began to rise over our broken lives, shadows crept back in. One night, I woke up to faint sounds from the living room, whispers and a low hum. I stepped out of bed and followed the noise. Emma was sitting on the couch, laptop open, a half-empty wine glass beside her. Her face was lit by the blue glow of the screen. "Emma?" I asked softly. She jumped, quickly minimizing something. "Oh, hey, Mom." I couldn't sleep. I noticed her eyes were red not just from tears, but exhaustion. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," she said quickly. "Just working on something." But her tone was off. Nervous. Guarded. The next morning, she left early without saying where she was going. That became a pattern, disappearing for hours, coming home with vague answers. My stomach twisted with worry. I didn't want to go back to the days of suspicion and silence. But then, one afternoon, while cleaning, I found something that made my blood run cold. A small envelope tucked under her pillow. Inside, a stack of bills, over $5,000 in cash. And a note that said, "For Mom. In case something happens." My hands trembled. What did she mean, in case something happens? That evening, when she came home, I confronted her. "Emma," I said firmly, "what's going on?" "I found the money." Her face went pale. "You went through my things?" "I was cleaning. And I'm worried about you." She pressed her lips together, looking down. "It's nothing. Just savings." "Emma, that's not true. You've been distant again. You're hiding something." Her hands started shaking. "Mom, please, just trust me this time. I'm trying to fix it." "Fix what?" I demanded. She turned away, tears welling up. "The mistake I made. The people I owe." The room spun around me. "People you owe?" She nodded weakly. Before everything happened, I got involved with some bad people. They promised to help me with my bills. I didn't realize what I was getting into. My voice cracked. "What kind of people, Emma?" Her silence said enough. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every noise outside made me jump. Every shadow looked like a threat. I thought back to her hospital note, "You'll understand soon, Mom." Was this what she meant? That her pain wasn't just emotional, but dangerous? The next morning, I found a strange car parked across the street. Dark windows. Engine idling. When I stepped outside, it drove away. My chest tightened with dread. I called Emma at work. No answer. I called again. Voicemail. Hours later, she came home, shaken, pale. I grabbed her shoulders. "Emma, talk to me. What's happening?" She hesitated, then finally whispered, "They want the money back." I told them I'd pay it. But they said if I don't, they'll come for you. My blood froze. "For me?" She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen, Mom. I just wanted to help. I thought I could handle it." I hugged her tight. "We'll figure this out. Together." But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. That night, I packed a small bag, cash, documents, the essentials. If anyone came, we were leaving. No second thoughts. When I peeked into Emma's room, she was asleep, clutching that same letter she'd written as a child, the one about loving me more than all the stars. My heart broke all over again. I whispered, "No one's going to hurt you again. I promise." But in my gut, I could feel it, the storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Every creak of the house felt like footsteps. Every shadow that moved across the window made my heart jump. Emma's words replayed in my mind like a broken record. They said if I don't pay, they'll come for you. I'd lost her once before, emotionally, painfully. I wasn't going to lose her again, not like this. At 5 a.m., I poured myself a cup of cold coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope of cash she'd hidden. $5,000, a number too small to buy peace, too large to come without danger. The sun hadn't even risen when there was a knock on the door. It wasn't loud, just 2 deliberate knocks. The kind that tells you the person on the other side isn't visiting, they're here for something. My heart stopped. I peeked through the curtains. A man stood on the porch. Tall. Black coat. Hands in his pockets. "Who is it?" I called, trying to steady my voice. "Morning, Mrs. Hall," he said calmly. "I think you have something that belongs to us." I froze. Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, eyes wide. "Mom, don't." I turned back toward the man. "I don't know what you're talking about." He smiled, polite, cold. "Your daughter does. Tell her we don't like delays." He slipped a folded piece of paper under the door, then walked away like he had all the time in the world. When I unfolded it, I saw 3 words scrawled in red ink: "Last warning. Tonight." Emma collapsed onto the couch, shaking. "Oh God, Mom, what do I do?" I knelt beside her, gripping her hands. "Tell me everything. Now." Through tears, she explained. Months before our fallout, she'd taken a loan from an online contact, a quick cash scheme she thought was harmless. But the people behind it weren't lenders. They were part of a small trafficking ring that used debt to manipulate victims. "When I stopped paying, they started following me," she whispered. "Then after the overdose, I thought I'd escaped it. But they found me again." My mind spun. All this time, I thought my daughter's pain was rebellion. It was fear. And I hadn't seen it. I grabbed my phone and dialed the police. After explaining what happened, they told me an officer would be dispatched to monitor the property. But they warned me, "If you're being extorted, stay inside, keep all doors locked, and don't confront anyone." Emma and I spent the rest of the day in silence. Every hour felt heavier. As night fell, I could see headlights flashing outside again. The same dark car. My hands shook as I turned off all the lights. "Stay here," I whispered to Emma. She grabbed my arm. "Mom, don't go out there." But I had to. Because for the first time in my life, I realized love isn't just forgiveness. It's courage. I opened the door just enough to step outside. The air was cold, sharp with the smell of rain. The car door opened, and the same man stepped out, this time with another beside him. "You shouldn't have called the cops," the first man said, his voice smooth as ice. "We don't like attention." I took a deep breath. "You're not getting a cent more." He smirked. "Then we'll take something else." The second man moved forward, fast, but just as he did, flashing red and blue lights filled the street. Police sirens. Hands where I can see them. Officers surrounded the car in seconds. The men froze, caught off guard. Emma ran out behind me, crying. They were handcuffed, dragged away, shouting threats that faded into the night. When it was over, I finally exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for months. The officer approached us. "We've been tracking these guys for weeks. You did the right thing calling in." Emma was shaking, tears streaming down her face. I wrapped her in my arms. "It's over," I whispered. "You're safe now." She clung to me, sobbing. "I thought I'd lost you, Mom. I thought I'd ruined everything." I held her tighter. "We both made mistakes, sweetheart. But we're still here." And that was all that mattered. Days later, as we sat on the porch watching the sunrise, the world felt different. Quiet. Safe. Emma sipped her coffee and said softly, "You know, when I said those awful words, the best gift would be if you just died." I looked at her gently. She continued, "I wasn't angry at you. I was angry at myself. I thought I'd disappointed you so much that you'd be better off without me." My heart broke all over again. I reached out, touching her cheek. "Oh, baby, the best gift you could ever give me is you alive, healing, right here." She smiled faintly, eyes glistening. "Then I guess I finally got you the right gift." We laughed softly, through the tears. The pain didn't vanish overnight. Healing rarely does. There were still therapy sessions, still moments of guilt and flashbacks. But there was also peace. I'd learned something profound. Sometimes love isn't about being right or strong. Sometimes it's just about staying. Through the yelling, through the silence, through the storms. Because real love doesn't run. Weeks later, I found a letter on my nightstand, Emma's handwriting. "Mom, thank you for never giving up on me. I know I said the worst thing a daughter could ever say. But you showed me that love can survive even the ugliest words. You taught me forgiveness isn't about forgetting, it's about choosing love anyway. You're my home, Mom. Always." Love, Emma. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I read it. I folded the letter carefully, placing it beside her old one, the one from when she was 8. Mom, I love you more than all the stars. This time, I whispered back, I love you more than all the tomorrows.